Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. Time for your DC Spotlight for December 19th, 2023. We hope that you guys have been joining Rocky and I for 12 Days of the Comic Source. We've been celebrating Bad Idea, counting down some of, or not counting down, but covering some of the series from Bad Idea. A lot of them Rocky hasn't had a chance to read yet, so that's been a lot of fun. We hope you're all having a joyous holiday season, getting to spend time with family and friends. We know it's hectic. We know it's busy. So we hope you're having some time to enjoy some comics as well. Pretty big week this week, although DC's had such big weeks lately, like 18, 17, 18, 19 books that there's 14 this week, and it didn't feel overwhelming, which by no means do I want that to be precedent. Like 8 books, 10 books, that's plenty. We start getting more than that, it feels overwhelming. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good week. One of those weeks, though, where the highs are really high and the lows are unfortunately really low. There's a couple of real stinkers in here, but try to keep it positive. Overall, I enjoyed this week. What do you think, Rocky?
Yeah, I'm batting the majority here. The majority of the titles this week I enjoyed, but there were some that there was one I just outright avoided, and one I thought was particularly bad. You could probably guess which one it was, but for the most part, the more majority, I'm still batting about 70% of the comics I've been enjoying, and some are particularly good. So be curious to hear your thoughts as we go through them.
Yeah, and I'm sure longtime listeners will know, the trends, the things we tend to like, and the things we tend not to like. And one of the things we tend to like is Batman Superman World's Finest. So we're up to issue number 22 here, almost 2 years in. Mark Waid is the writer, Dan Mora on art, Tamara Bonvillain on color, Steve Wands on letters. We're continuing the Heir to the Kingdom storyline. This is chapter 3, Gospel of Gog. Gog being sort of the mentor of Magog, the kind of the antagonist of Kingdom Come miniseries. Alex Ross, Mark Waid, back in the day, very influential, very much an evergreen title for DC. And when Mark Waid started, when he introduced Boy Thunder, I think it was the second arc that he did, maybe the third arc of World's Finest. There were hints that he was related to Magog, that he was Magog. Waid never confirmed those, but he didn't shy away from them either. Kind of just let the story do the talking, and then came back to it a few arcs later. That's the arc we're on now. And yeah, we're starting to see how it ties into Kingdom Come. Gog showed up last issue. We get his origin in this issue. We get what he's about. He's not being honest. He's not being truthful with Magog. But, based on the trauma and the things that Magog has been through, I mean, we actually see him become Magog in this issue. We see the transformation from Thunder. He was Thunder Boy when he was on Earth, went over to, Earth 22, became Thunder Man, and now we're talking about him actually becoming Magog, the character from Kingdom Come. What's interesting, I won't go so far as to say that it doesn't make sense, like continuity-wise. Obviously Mark Waid wrote Kingdom Come. If anybody is going to make it make sense, it's him. But certainly when he wrote that story, he probably didn't even have a concept of Thunder Boy, of Thunderman, of David, or maybe did. I don't know. But it necessarily think he would have a concept of David, as a young boy, and the trauma that he'd been through, losing his parents, losing his world, and that sort of thing. So it's kind of interesting because it's a little hard to see how you get to the story that happens in Kingdom Come if we're going to get a resolution to this story, right? So it's one of two things. It's kind of like when you go back and tell a story about the Titanic. Guess what? At the end, the boat sinks, right? Like you have to get it to that point. So it's kind of interesting. Can Superman and Batman really have a true clean victory here? Can they stop Gog? Can they stop David or Thunderman or Magog as he's been transformed in this issue? Well, you can't really have that, because then if you do, then you undo everything that happens in Kingdom Come. Like Kingdom Come doesn't happen, right? So kind of interesting. Now, I'm nitpicking and whatever. I'm sure Waid will give us a satisfying story. Just something I've been thinking of Like, how do you do that? You know, because it does seem like a big challenge in terms of just, okay, forget about Kingdom Come, forget that I ever read it, and just read this for what it is. It's really enjoyable. It showcases who Superman is, who Batman is, and that's one of the strengths of, you know, the world's finest title throughout DC's long history. It's so much about the core of who those characters are, how they're different, and what their friendship, what their relationship is like. That's all highlighted here in the context of the stories that Mark Waid is telling. This one happens to be a multiversal story with, you know, hints of some of the characters that will come to pass in Kingdom Come. So in terms of all that, it works really well. The Dan Mora art is absolutely fantastic. The colors are bright and vibrant. There's nothing not to like, you know, despite me kind of wondering, well, you know, how's this all going to make sense? You know, that again, that's a nitpick. I can set that aside and just enjoy this for what it is, and what it is, a really great comic and a really great title. So yeah, for me, this was one of the better books this week. What do you think, Rocky?
I quite enjoyed it. I think it's told very smoothly. I think it's easy to transition from this into Kingdom Come. There's a little bit of I know Alex Ross didn't particularly like some of the things that were done by Jeff Johns in the Pages of Justice Society when he touched on Earth 22 back in the day. But I know Mark Waid, he did indicate in an interview that he had spoken with Alex Ross and discussed some of the things. And so Mark Waid, I think, you know, come hell or high water, we can probably trust that, like you said, that Mark Waid knows what he's doing here. And regardless, I mean, you know, it is smooth. We get an origin for Gog here. The origin of Gog, it's very straightforward. Gog was a creature, was a god of the third world, and in the transition from the third world to the fourth world, the third world was destroyed, and the from the remnants of the third world, Apocalypse and New Genesis were born, which gave rise to Darkseid, and of course, a High Father. And one of the remnants of the third world was Gog himself became a force. And he ultimately ended up on Earth 22, where for thousands of years he was a benevolent god. He was a good god. He was a kind god. But then he disappeared for 10,000 years. And he only came back when David himself disappeared from Earth designated zero. And when he appeared, when David Thunderboy appeared on Earth 22, Gog was attracted to David because David has the power to transport between worlds, to traverse the multiverse. And Gog's ultimate plan is to use David's power, i.e., Thunderman, and then, of course, changes him into Magog, and then utilizes that power. His ultimate goal is to take all the heroes of Earth 22, and to attack basically Apocalypse on basically a suicide mission, and that's what's discovered here. But how they discovered is just I love the respect that Mark Waid gives not only the two Batman and Superman from Earth 1, but Batman and Superman the, that we know and love from Kingdom Come. As somebody who loves Kingdom Come, he gives a lot of respect to Batman and Superman. The older versions of Kingdom Come, they figure it out. The older Batman figures out that they're maybe being played for fools by Gog. Batman, the older Batman, understands that he figures out that something is wrong with David, that he's not entirely being truthful. He can see the signs, and he saw the signs before the older Superman did. And of course, we're going to end up next issue with two Superman, two Batman, you know, basically trying to take down Gog and obviously this new Magog, and to try to prevent this suicide mission to Apocalypse. This is really epic. This is really cool. We should also mention that this is the first time that the heroes of this is the first time that Superman and Batman Earth 22 become aware of the existence of a multiverse. And so we have that as well. And we got all these little cards coming into play here. And we get some introductions of new heroes. We get the new heroes are hinted at. We're not really sure who they are. There's a few that even Batman of Earth 1 doesn't recognize. They hold their own pretty well, Batman and Superman. And I love the detective work. I love the appearance of Metron. Gog seems to be sitting on Metron's chair, the Mobius chair. That's pretty cool too. The last time the Mobius chair gained a lot of prominence is when Batman sat on it and asked, who's the Joker. So it's nice to see Mark Waid, bringing the Mobius chair back and being utilized by Gog for nefarious purposes here. And I thought this just works really well. Mark Waid continues, notwithstanding some, he maybe in his social media profile. He's had some hiccups as of late, but as a comic book writer, he continues to just hit it out of the park. Oh, sorry, you're on mute there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the suicide mission because I was kind of like when they said, okay, his goal is to go and attack Apocalypse. I'm like, wait, this is again, how's this making sense with what we know of Gog and Magog from Kingdom Come? And then they said, oh, you're going to go and attack it, not to win the fight, but to have all the heroes from Earth be killed. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Very Mark Waid thing to do. So, yeah, definitely enjoying the tie-in to Kingdom Come for sure. All right, up next we have Batman Santa Claus Silent Night #3, written by Jeff Parker. Art by Michelle Bandini and Trevor Hairsine, colored by Alex Sinclair, lettered by Pat Broso. This continues to be a really fun story. I do wish we had a little bit more of Santa Claus. We don't get a lot of Santa Claus in this issue. We get a few jokes about Aquaman and what have you. Jeff Parker does seem to have a pretty good handle on who these characters are. And I certainly enjoyed the sort of young Kansas farm boy aspect to Superman that Parker gives us when he gets a chance to meet Santa Claus for the first time. Oh, you remember me, that sort of thing. But yeah, this continues to be a lot of fun. We get a little twist at the end, a little hint that maybe Krampus, who we thought was the bad guy, isn't really the bad guy. Maybe there's somebody sort of pulling his strings, and that somebody has gone from controlling Krampus to controlling Superman, and has released a bunch of the monster kind, and they're and some of them are gigantic when you look at them in terms of how large they are. It's a fantastic final scene with Santa Claus, looking up at them, and they're quite large. So looking forward to the epic battle. Obviously, this ties into a lot of kind of Western mythology, a lot of Norse mythology. When you talk, or Germanic mythology as well, when you talk about Klaus and Krampus and all that sort of thing. So I'm really enjoying this. I think one of the things that really helps, because it is such a large cast and the story is a little bit sprawling, it can feel a little bit choppy at times because it's moving at such a fast pace. But one of the things that really helps is that it's a weekly release. So I don't really have time to feel lost. I pretty much remember what was happening the previous issue. So again, I think really fun that DC is doing this as a weekly series celebrating the holiday season. So, I'm not the biggest fan of having two artists on here, Trevor Hairsine and Michelle Bandini. The Bandini art is fantastic. Hairsine's art, like whenever I see it, I can't help but think of Deceased, right? The title that he did with Tom Taylor,
Yeah,
which is so antithetical to who Santa Claus is. You're
yeah,
talking about joy and love and whatever, and all I can think of is, oh, there's Deceased Wonder Woman with zombies and the anti-life equation and all that. So I kind of wish they'd pick somebody whose style was a little closer to Bandini's, but again, minor nitpick. Obviously, on a weekly series, I'm sure Bandini kind of needed the help. That's a big ask to have somebody finish all these pages. I mean, I don't know how long ago they started this, but I'm enjoying it. And yeah, we've got Santa Claus as a canonical superhero in the DC universe with this. What do you think of it?
I really like that writer Jeff Parker is incorporating a lot of heroes of the DC universe, because this is exactly what we should get. This feels like not just the Justice League eh, teaming up with Santa Claus, but it feels like all the heroes outside the Justice League as well. This feels very all inclusive. I feel like this is a DC universe adventure with, and it's nice to see Hawkgirl, Joe Mulane, the Green Lantern, and Black Canary all show up here. Wonder Woman. I mean, and all of them have something to do. They're not wasted. I mean, they're actually doing something constructive. They're not just there for the sake of making an appearance. And they're all working together. And I love the fact that all of them, especially Blue Beetle, he's always like at the side saying, "Wait a minute, what do you mean? That's like Santa?" It's like everyone sort of has the same sort of similar reaction. Wait a minute, you mean that's actually the Santa? I know it's kind of an obvious inside joke, but it's funny because, and it works surprisingly well, because we say again, we're in the third chapter of this story, and it is kind of cool, kind of surprising that, yeah, we actually have a Santa Claus in continuity in the DC universe. That's kind of cool. That's kind of fun to see. And this is a fun story. And with Krampus, possessing Superman, it makes sense. You want to give the villain some more gravitas than just being basically a grumpy old Grinch. He's got to have some powers in order to challenge the heroes, and taking over Superman is a way to do that. And maybe being able to somehow mind control some of the heroes by giving them a bah humbug sort of attitude is kind of in keeping with the opposite of the Christmas spirit and enhances the story. And, we got one more issue to go on a weekly basis for the month of December. This is definitely the way to tell the story. And I agree with you on the Harrison art. It's impossible for me, and obviously apparently for you, when Wonder Woman comes down and attacks one of those, I don't know, those odd-looking bird creatures. Yeah, harpies. Yeah, I mean, it looks like a scene right out of Deceased. It really does. So it's kind of hard not to think, oh my God, are the undead going to show up too? But no, it was still pretty cool though, and it was still an epic scene with Hawkgirl, Joe Mulane, Green Lantern, and Wonder Woman kicking some ass there. So that was still a lot of fun. But no, this continues to be a very pleasant surprise in this Christmas season for DC.
Yeah, the only thing that I think might have been better served would have been if they'd started it a week sooner. And the only reason I say that is because it would have been better. This is the last Tuesday before Christmas, right? Like the next Tuesday that we have is going to come after Christmas already come. Next Tuesday is, the 26th. So if they had done this, if they had started this, I guess it actually would have had to be 2 weeks sooner, right? Because the final issue 4 comes out on the day after Christmas, the 26th. I think if they'd started it 2 weeks sooner, and then we had the final issue last week, what they could have done is they could have released the collected edition on the 19th, the Tuesday before Christmas. Because then, like you said, this is so great in that it has just about every DC hero show up at some point and get to interact with Santa Claus. What a great Christmas gift, right? For a young kid, you get a chance to see other heroes you might not be familiar with, some heroes that are your favorite, Jaime Blue Beetle, or whoever. But again, it's just something I thought of would have made sense marketing wise for DC to do that. But the story itself is a lot of fun. So also, I'll just mention real briefly, there's a Joker Harley Uncovered issue 1. This is one of those issues that collects a bunch of variant covers that DC's been doing lately. I have mixed feelings on these. Like, it's great for somebody who doesn't have a chance to get some of the variant covers, especially ones that are ratio variants, because they're more expensive than just cover price. So it's a chance to get it. But at the same time, it's like DC's selling this and it's all profit for them, right? Like, they've already paid for this artwork. They're just collecting it. They already own it. They just throw it in a book and then sell it. So it feels a little bit like a cash grab. So, I certainly wouldn't, buy any of these, except I say that I did buy the Lee Bermejo one because he's, one of my favorite cover artists. Even though I own most of the Lee Bermejo covers that are in it. So, if you're a fan of Joker and Harley, you're probably going to want to pick this up, get a chance to own these covers. Most of the covers do have Joker and Harley. Then as you get a little bit farther in the book, some are Joker and or just Joker, some are Joker and Punchline, some are Harley and Poison Ivy. So there is a little bit of variety, but yeah, early on it's all Joker and Harley. There weren't any covers in here that really blew me away. I mean, I certainly wouldn't purchase this. And we're talking about two characters that I think are grossly overused. So, anything to add on that, Rocky?
No, I just love the Brian Boland cover with Punchline, but that was a retailer incentive, so I'll never own that, unfortunately. But
yeah,
that's my one pet. Well, I'm not gonna, my rant and raving about my variant covers, but I'll let that go. Just the season.
Yep.
No bomb.
All right, up next. Yeah, bomb, exactly. Up next, we have Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder, number 6. 3 stories in here. Harley's All the Way Down, starting art by Bruno Redondo, letters by Wes Abbott, is the first story, and then the second story, this is really weird. So I'm not really sure. So in the digital press preview copy that we got, it says that actually, I might be able to figure it out here because the first story is listed as chapter 16. Okay, so yeah, so they put the wrong title page. They went from 16 to 18. So actually, it's chapter 17 is the second story. It's Dr. Quinzel's Couples Counseling, written by Dennis Camp. Fabio Veras is the artist, letters by Pat Broso. That one was actually pretty enjoyable. It's this couple that is arguing on the street. Harley kidnaps them, puts them through some couples counseling. They end up coming together and escaping together. It's actually pretty fun. And the last one is Sirens Rising from writer Tinny Howard. Breakdowns by Wook Jin Clark. Finishes are by Babs Tarr. Colors by Rachel Cohen, and letters by Becca Carey. And that's sort of an origin of how the Gotham City Sirens got together. So that one's kind of fun as well. If you're not familiar with the Gotham City Sirens, it was Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and Catwoman. But for me, where this really shines, and I got to say that this is one of the better issues of Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Redder, in that I enjoyed all the stories. A lot of the stories have been like, what was the point of that? But far and away, the best Harley Quinn story that I've read of all of them, of any of the 6 issues, is this Harley All the Way Down story by Bruno Redondo, who most people will know as an artist. He's great at giving Harley a voice, but also being the voice of like us fans that are frustrated with the way that DC treats Harley, because she herself kind of voices that frustration. She breaks the fourth wall. She talks about how they've just pulled her in every different direction, and a lesser character, it wouldn't work. But I was a little surprised to see this got through editorial. Maybe nobody's paying attention, but I thought it was great, and I think a lot of fans who are frustrated with how Harley's been treated will probably feel the same way as well. Plus, he designs a new costume for her, which is really cool as well. Ultimately, obviously, there's no resolution, but it would be great if can we hand over the reins of Harley to Bruno Redondo and say no one else gets to write Harley Quinn except Bruno for like a year? Could you imagine if he got to establish like a new status quo with Harley, and then everybody that comes after him has to like stick to that status quo instead of pulling her in 1,000 different directions?
Exactly. And draw her.
Yeah. Different costume, different attitude. I get it. Right. She's a cash cow at this point. But it's frustrating. So anyway, any thoughts on any of these stories, Rocky?
I'm just going to comment on the first story, which you were kind enough to give me 5 minutes before we came on, because I said straight up, I kind of stopped reading these Black Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Red, because of the very frustration that Bruno Redondo explains in his very first story with Harley Quinn breaking the fourth wall. You told me to read it because it's very timely, because you and I have often the criticism, I certainly have, I can't stand how Harley Quinn is everything to everyone, and that's not consistent writing. And but she is a character that writers can get away with writing her however they want, with no consistency. She's good, she's bad, she's anti-hero, she's everything. When you're everything to everybody, you're nothing, in my view. To me, pick a lane and stay in your lane. But Harley Quinn does seem to get away with it, and she gets away with it even more so than the Joker does. The Joker never gets away with being a good guy. The Joker doesn't get away with being. I mean, the Joker is, the Joker at least even when the Joker's written out of character, he's still psychotic, but just a version. But whereas Harley, no, I don't know. She's too much of an aberration. And thank you, Bruno Redondo, for saying the part that, the quiet part out loud, because every time I always thought that maybe I was kind of, maybe I'm just another guy who's bitching about Harley. I'm an older white guy. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut. I've been accused of that, and sometimes rightly so. Okay, I'll fall upon my sword. I was pleasantly surprised when you pointed this story out to me. It's like, thank you, Bruno Redondo, a class A artist like that, penning a story like this. I mean, man, I'm impressed. Thank you, Bruno, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I was waiting to hear you say something about it. You're like, I can't stomach those, and I get it. Like, so often we read it and it's like, what was the point of that? And I'm not even the Harley fan that you are, so I can really understand your frustration, being that she means so much more to you than she does to me. To have her, yeah, so inconsistent and yeah, like again, it is a strength of the character that she is so malleable, but at the same time, like you said, pick a lane. There's something to be said for consistency. You know, if you want to write her differently, or if she wants to be different in different mediums, like if the HBO Max cartoon is that's different, if she's different on the big screen, if she's different in a black label book, I get that. But books that are just like regular DC continuity, there should be some consistency instead of yeah, oh look, here's in Sanctuary she's defeating the Trinity, but then over here she's struggling in her own book to beat up somebody who doesn't even have superpowers. It's maddening. So anyway, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say about this one. Up next is Hawkgirl #6, written by Jadzia Axelrod, drawn by Ammon K. Nahilipan, colors by Alex Guermas and Carrie Strachan, letters by Hassan Atzman Elhal. This is the sixth and final issue. What'd you think?
Well, sometimes my words come back to haunt me, and they've haunted me. They'll haunt me right now because I accuse some writers of Harley Quinn to pick a lane. Well, Jaxine Axelrod, she did pick a lane with Hawkgirl. I don't particularly like the lane, but I can't fault her for not picking a lane. She definitely picked the lane. It was just one that I prefer that Kendra
You're
Saunders
taking
did.
you're taking the off ramp. If
Yes,
she's going to be in that lane, you're taking
yeah,
the off.
but I will focus. I will start off by focusing on the positive in the spirit, tis the season, in the spirit of the Christmas spirit, and I'll do the bah humbug thing last. The 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 potential positives out of this is that Kendra Saunders in this, as as Hawkgirl, Axelrod has always conceived of for Kendra Saunders that her past lives were always they're scripted like ghosts. Most of us think when coming up leading into this Hawkgirl series, yes, Kendra always had past lives, but they weren't ghosts that haunted her. She had memories of past lives, just like the Hawkman did. They weren't ghosts that haunted her, but in this series, Kendra's past lives were literally ghosts that haunted her and talked with her and whispered her, and almost like driving her crazy and insane. That was clearly something that Axelrod just sort of pulled out of the air. There's no evidence of it in any of her past iterations. But what it's now become clear with this sixth and final issue of this series why Axelrod was doing that, and that is because in Valpecula, the villain who was trying to get home to the nth world, and in the nth world, the way the rules work in the nth world apparently is that you gotta make bargains and you gotta make wishes and to oversimplify things, the explosion in issue 5 that led to Hawkgirl ending up in the nth world basically destroyed the barrier between the nth world and our reality. And the only way to fix that barrier and prevent the destruction of our universe and the nth world is if there's a more bargains. Millions of bargains need to be made. Millions of lives have to pay the price, but there's no lives to sacrifice. Where can you find a million lives to sacrifice? Ah, wait a minute. We got all these ghosts that are in Kendra's mind. So Kendra sacrifices all her past lives to save the nth world and our universe from destruction. And she does so with the help, of course, of Galaxy. And that's what happens. And as a reward for that sacrifice, the king of the nth world, Aesop, crowns and knights Kendra Saunders as Hawkgirl, Knight of the nth world. So that's kind of cool when I put it like that, and that's the way I'm going to choose to look at it because I want to focus on the positive. That's kind of cool. Having said that, how we got there, and I'm not going to belabor all the points I made on the previous 5 issues. I think this has been a very messy series. I don't really like the road or the journey getting here, but I will say that at least now, I guess Kendra has gotten rid of the voices. Her past lives are now just memories, like they should have always been in the first place, quite frankly. And she's got a new life, a new path. She's got a cool new. Now her mace is made of 100% nth metal. It can take whatever shape she wants because it's got some magical properties. She's got a direct connection to the nth world. The nth world is still kind of sort of a mystery. There's some rules of the nth world that I won't go into here. They're a little bit odd. It's not entirely clear. I think there's some inherent contradictions in the rules of the nth world, but I won't belabor the point. But I think overall here, I get it. It works. Uh, Kendra's sexuality is still sort of an open question by the end here. It's clear that her high school, her college friend does have some affection for her, but that, not Axelrod didn't go completely to that side of the equation. So that's still an open question, Kendra's sexuality. But she's got a new lease on life. So that's still an open question. So this series ends with a new potential for Kendra Saunders that can lead to interesting future stories with the Nth World, with Kendra being a knight of the Nth World. And that's what I choose to focus on. I won't go the bah humbug route. I did that for 5 issues. I'll just focus on that. And I think that there are some cool concepts here moving forward. And look, see, I can be positive. So what do you think?
So I tend to agree with you that I like where we ended up. Where we ended up feels like it has potential. It feels like Kendra's in a good place. But here's the thing, right? I will throw a little bah humbug in there. I sort of feel like where we ended up with Kendra is not so far from where it felt like Kendra was before the series started,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You mentioned this problem of the past lives, haunting her like ghosts, and causing her some mental health struggles and what have you. That had never been a story point, a character point until this. So Axelrod introduces it as a problem and then resolves it, and we're like, oh, great, it's resolved. Hey, that's awesome. But if she hadn't done it in the first place, it wouldn't have needed to be resolved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get it. Like Kendra's got a little bit more of a supporting cast. She's got a little more question. Um, she's left some of the trauma that's kind of inherent in her origin behind. Some people choose to think that her origin is a little bit problematic. I feel like it can be when you look at it, in terms of abuse and what have you. Kind of a product of the time that she was created. I don't think that gets her origin and the things she's been through, sexual abuse and what have you, gets a editorial approval these days. To be honest with you, so getting rid of some of that, I think is a net positive for the character. But in terms of this issue itself, I sort of feel like this issue really epitomizes the entire series very, very well. The first half of the issue, when we're introduced to Nth World, everything, like, it almost feels like word salad. Or am I reading the Cy Spurrier book here? Everything is weird and esoteric and just jumps around. And then, oh, now here's Aesop. Oh, here's the mustache twirling villain Velpecula. It just felt very messy. And then we start to get to the resolution, and then it's like a complete 180 and very much enjoyable, and it ends on a positive note. It ends in a good place. But why does Nth World have to be so just wonky, just so crazy and esoteric? It's like Axelrod probably has these great, big, huge ideas for Nth World, and it's been mentioned. Nth World has been mentioned as a place throughout the entire series, but there just wasn't the real estate to explore it until 4 or 5 pages at the beginning of the final issue. Like, it too much. You tried to put too much in here. You wanted to put Galaxy in here because she's your creation. You want her as a supporting character for Hawkgirl. Okay, I get it, but it too much. You try to put too much in the series, and ultimately it ends up feeling choppy, and it didn't, I think, live up to the potential. I mean, people were very excited for this. There's no Hawk book at all. There's no Hawkman. This was the only Hawk girl book coming out. Robert Venditti was the last one that did a Hawkman series. It was very well received, even though the sales kind of dipped toward the end, and that's why it got canceled. So there's a pretty big fan contingent, bigger than you would think, that are big fans of Hawkman and Hawkgirl, Hawkwoman, and I never saw any of them that really liked this. So it'd be interesting to see how they kind of rate it, what their thoughts are on the end. Because again, you and I both think it ends on a somewhat positive note, even if it feels that way because of what Axelrod did to in the beginning, and again, like the over stuffing of the story, I think, is why we end up with Velpecula as a very two-dimensional villain. There wasn't really room to really explore her in a way that she could be relatable or we could empathize with her. Try to do a little bit too much, I think, ultimately. So we'll see what comes of Hawkgirl next, where she shows up next. Be curious to see that. All right. Up next, we have Green Lantern War Journal, issue number 4, from writer Philip Kennedy Johnson. Art is by Montos, colors by Adriana Lucas, letters by Dave Sharp. This is a really, I really enjoyed this book. What do you think?
I Yeah, Philip Kennedy Johnson. I am I'm really enjoying his great. This is actually my favorite Green Lantern. Actually, and it's funny. I'm putting together my top 20 DC uh, comics for 2023, and it was actually surprisingly enough, it was easier than I thought. And I won't focus too much on that right now, other than to say that I'm looking forward to doing my top 20 DC. But it was very interesting when I think about the stories that I remember, as opposed to, if you were to ask me from week to week over the last year, I could tell you, obviously my list would change with my top 20 DC. But when I like being able to look back and say, okay, what stories really resonated with me, and more specifically, which ones do I remember? And that's the big one. Which ones do I remember without having to go back, and like the ones that I just feel resonate with me? And when I think of Green Lantern War Journal, this is the one that actually resonates with me the most. And I think it's because we kept getting teasers of John Stewart, uh, Green Lantern, and we got the teasers for, like, even coming out of Jeffrey Thorne's run and into his PKJ's run. This idea of the Revenant Queen and this other universe, and the Revenant Queen coming to find a John Stewart of this universe, and it feels like something terrifying is going to be happening. And just the idea that we have this other Green Lantern Corps coming to our universe to find and recruit John Lantern to fight the Revenant Queen, who's trying to take over this universe, and to spread her power across the multiverse. And this particular issue continues PKJ's. Really, it feels like an epic story to me, in my view, and the art as well. I mean, the art by Montos is just fantastic. It really resonates, and I love that he's incorporating the United Planets. We haven't seen a lot of the United Planets. I like the politics of the United Planets. We got remnants of the United Planets being manipulated by Mongol in War World, again a story written by PKJ. I like that he's incorporating the United Planets here in a story entitled Rebuild, here in this particular issue with John Stewart Green Lantern. And I like the politics here, that we have a United Planets, essentially, politician who is trying to vie for power, and he's corrupt, and he specifically was using the Green Lantern Veron to for his own uses. But of course, we know Veron has been killed and is now possessed by the Revenant Queen, and and uh, so they've got reason to believe that maybe Veron is dead, but we know he's possessed by the Revenant Queen. And we what this series is, as John Stewart continues to struggle with the infection, because he's been infected by the Revenant Queen. And I like that again, PKJ is utilizing the storyline of the Genesis energy that came from War World. They utilize the Genesis energy in this issue to try to empower up the power ring, because what's different is that when Veron was lost, when he died, no, it unlike in our universe where a Green Lantern dies, the ring finds a new host, a new ring bearer. In this case, the ring dies too. So they utilize the Genesis energy to re-empower the ring, and John Stewart utilizes that ring as well. So we got John Stewart with sort of a ring that's sort of a hybrid ring between a ring that's from another universe, but also is infected a little bit with Revenant Queen energies. And so it's interesting. And at the end, he becomes empowered. He becomes powered up, and now their job is to go and do some hunting, and hunt down the Revenant Queen and stop her spread. I just thought this is just excellent, and just the way this is all playing out, you can really see I feel like this is another hero's journey for John Stewart, and this is done in I think a very exciting way, and this is going to read excellent as a trade. I don't often say to myself, I'm going to buy the trade of a series, but I might end up buying the trade of this, and I'm almost hoping that they make this a hardcover, because I'm enjoying this more than his War World saga, and I'm enjoying this more than his Action Comics run. I think this is PKJ's best DC work to date. So, what do you think?
It's hard to argue with that. Because here's the thing, like we talk all the time about what a great world builder Philip is. what Wonder Woman, Dead Earth, and wait, no, that was Danny Warren Johnson. What's the one
Yeah.
I'm thinking of that he did? It was a Black Label series. Um,
New Gods or Last God.
yeah, Last God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then same thing when he was building on what's come before in the world of Aliens over at Marvel.
Right.
The guy's such a great world builder. So yeah, it's I kind of feel like he's one of those writers where whatever his most recent thing that he does, I'm going to be like, oh, that's the best thing he's done. Like he continues to get better. The reason this feels so great, this War Journal series feels so great, and feels like the best thing he's done is because it builds on everything that's come before. You mentioned it has ties to what we saw in Warworld. It has ties to even some of the things that Jeffrey Thorne did in the previous John Stewart Green Lantern run. It has ties to things that Brian Michael Bendis did with the United Planets. So it's not just that Philip is so great at world building, but he takes the building blocks that other people have laid, and he incorporates them into his story to make it more exciting, to make it make more sense. And as a reader, you feel like you're getting value. You feel like the stories that you read matter, right? Like it's the reason that so many of us love DC so much, because it has a tighter continuity. It has a sense of legacy. There's a lot of chatter these days, especially on social media, about kind of the struggles that comic retail is having. There's debate. There's no one simple answer. It's a very complicated issue, but why are sales down? Like sales for comics are up overall, but specifically for Marvel and DC, that's not the case. Why is that? People talk about quality of story, this and that. One of the things that you want as a reader is you want to know that the stories you're reading matter. When you're reading these shared universes, that's why you read them. Nobody wants to read something if it gets thrown out the following week and it doesn't matter. The story and continuity changes. That's what's so great about what Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing here. He's making those stories that came before, that he's borrowing elements from, he's making them matter even more. He's making them more important. He's making them more relevant. So that's really fantastic. You mentioned the idea that in the universe of the Revenant Queen comes from when a lantern is killed. It's stated that when a lantern who's infected by the Revenant Queen energy is killed, that's when their ring dies. The fact that they take one of those rings, they imbue it with Genesis energy, and John Stewart is able to use it, that again, it's just an exciting, fascinating idea, right? So it's got some possible Revenant Queen connection or energy still. It's got Genesis energy, which is not really something we've seen in a Green Lantern ring before. And it's got John Stewart, one of the greatest ring wielders of all time, wielding it. Like it's just this unique artifact. And what's one of the things that we talk about when we talk about these families of heroes, right? Superman family, Green Lantern, even Spider-Man, Batman, whatever. It's like when you make so many of them, then they're all less special, right? They're less unique. They matter less. But I get why they do it. Everybody wants to kind of have, the Green Lantern to call their own. But God, there's so many. There's so many now. This is a way to really make John Stewart unique and make him different, make him stand out without throwing the baby out with the bathwater like Jeffrey Thorne did and making him this like God-like being who can do whatever he wants with just snap his fingers. This is a different way to do it, and I can't wait to see where it goes in the hands of Philip Kennedy Johnson. I do have one question. It seemed to me, Rocky, that after he confronted Varon in that other realm or whatever, and had the ring for the first time, and then shows back up in our reality, if you will, he was no longer infected. But I'm not sure that's I got that sense, but maybe the
Yeah.
infection is just under control by the ring. Like I'm not really
Yeah.
sure if
That
he's infected still or not.
I think that's an open question. I'm not sure either. I think it's implied that he was able to, the Genesis energy managed to maybe destroy it when the Genesis energy imbued the ring, destroy the infection. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. That might be something. It might be maybe, I know where you're going with this. I think it's sort of like, is it going to be like a parallax infection? Is it going to be
Yeah,
something that slowly infects John Stewart over time and comes back to haunt him? I
comes
don't know. It's a good,
3 or 4 arcs from now.
yeah.
Oh, by the way, remember when he was infected?
Yeah, it'll make
So
his
yeah,
hair turn gray, and he'll have the streak like
yeah.
Hal Jordan did, right?
So yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. And I have to mention, as we're winding down on Green Lantern here, the Montos art is picture perfect. This is one of those situations where DC editorial picked the artist that has the perfect kind of style and aesthetic feel for the story that Philip Kennedy Johnson is telling. It's not super clean. It's a little messy, but the story's a little messy too in terms of everything that John's got, being thrown at him right now, being infected, dealing with lanterns from other universes, dealing with the Revenant Queen and what have you. So great choice on artist.
Mhm.
All right, up next we have Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, issue number 3. Brian Buccellato is the writer. Christian Duce is the artist. Luis Guerrero on colors. Richard Starking and Jimmy Betancourt on letters. I don't think that there's going to be lines around the block at comic shops tomorrow to pick up this book. I think a lot of people that don't read comics don't know about it. I think a lot of people that even do read comics that maybe don't read DC don't know anything about it. But Superman dies. And we had an issue previously where Superman died in Superman 75, where it was covered on the 6 o'clock news, and people did line up around the block, and it sold millions and millions of copies. And as fun as this series is, and as much as I love Brian Buccellato, I don't think, unfortunately, this is going to sell millions of copies. But Superman has died. Superman has died at the hands of Godzilla. Um, whether or not he'll remain dead, I guess we'll see. But this continues to be a heck of a lot of fun. I love the agency that Brian Buccellato immediately kind of gives with Superman off the page, so to speak. That it kind of transfers to Supergirl. We'll see how she kind of takes the reins and see if she's able to save her cousin. Batman continues to have a very strong voice, even though he only shows up for the final few pages here. It's clear that he's going to be very important to the story moving forward, and maybe he's going to have a hand in saving Superman. This, much like Silent Night, gives a chance for all the different heroes that are part of the battle here. They each get their moments. Hawkgirl's here, Flash, Green Lantern. Their interaction's great. We have Shazam, Billy Batson is here. But at the end of the day, do you know who the star of this book is? The star of this particular issue is? It's the monsters. It's the monsters. And that's why a lot of people are going to be picking this up, right? Oh, I love Godzilla. I love King Kong. We get a chance to see Kong for the first time in this issue. Godzilla has proven to be very formidable in this story. He killed Superman. So we'll see how that plays out as well. The Christian Duce art is gorgeous. This may be the best work I've ever seen Duce do. It feels big. It feels epic. He's doing a fantastic job of giving detail and giving scope to the story. These monsters feel dangerous and they feel gigantic. It's not the easiest thing to do, to put in detail, because a lot of times the camera's got to be zoomed way back in order for us to see just how large these monsters are. It makes it a little tougher to give context and body language to the heroes when they're in a panel with a large monster because they're so small. But Duce's been up to the challenge the entire time. And also the colors by Luis Guerrero. Very primary, very bright, which gives it that, classic superhero feel that I just love when it comes to a story like this. So this is an early favorite for one of my favorite series of the year for next year, because it won't finish in 2023. So I'll have to put it on my list for next year. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. And the covers that roar, I did. They finally came out. I was able to get a copy of each. And they're still in my car. I got them last week, I think on Thursday, and they're still in my backseat of my car. And what's funny is sometimes I'll turn a corner and I don't know, maybe they shift or something, and they'll roar. It'll be like, roar. The first time it happened, I was like, what? What's that noise? Where's that coming from? And I was, it's the comic in my backseat. And I picked my daughter up from school the other day, and yeah, we were turning the corner from her school onto the other street, and yeah, one of them roared, and she was like, "What's that noise?" It was hilarious. So
Yeah.
anyway, what are you thinking on Justice League Godzilla versus Kong number 3? Good, bad?
This Yeah, I enjoyed this. This is actually getting better. This is actually my favorite issue so far. And my favorite character in this issue is actually Supergirl and King Kong. It was nice to see King Kong, and it was so funny because it never even occurred to me that here you got this beautiful blonde woman floating in the air, flying Supergirl in front of King Kong. And it suddenly occurred to me the obvious. Well, King Kong's going to fall in love with Supergirl, because King Kong loves blondes. Everybody knows that, right? And who hasn't seen King Kong? Any movie with King Kong, and you got a good looking blonde, half naked. Kong likes blondes, right? And I just thought it was hilarious that, just when you think that, he reaches for Supergirl, intrigued, and maybe you're thinking they're gonna befriend each other, and then what does Supergirl do? Supergirl just conks someone right in the nose, and so much for that love affair. There's gonna be no love affair between Supergirl and Kong. I don't think. You never know, but I thought that was a really nice callback by Bucoletto, and again, beautiful art by Christian Duce, like you said. And I really enjoyed that, and I really loved how Supergirl stepped up to the plate here, and that the fact that Superman's off the playing field. Let's face it, Superman was incapacitated by a combination of Godzilla's uh, electrical whatever energy breath and Shazam's lightning. So I don't think Superman's dead, although probably in a deep state of a coma or while his body's recuperating is probably what's happening. But it's actually nice to have Superman taken off the playing field in a believable manner. In a very believable manner, because remember, we got the combination of the magical Shazam lightning, Superman's vulnerable to magic, and you don't even know the source of the power and the energy of Godzilla's power. Now that Godzilla and Kong and the Titan monsters are in the universe, so all of this stuff from a comic book perspective, and the comic books little boy geek in me, especially watching Monarch and want to go to Godzilla -1 the movies. I'm just having a blast with this, absolute blast, and and again, I'm very happy. Just like with the Silent Night series that we're reviewing, I love to see all the DC superheroes show up, and we got villains as well showing up. And Lex Luthor at the end is up to no good, finding another bit of the mystery, which will probably make this even more intriguing because more and more Titans are showing up in our reality, and it's causing havoc on the Earth. And they're more than a handful for DC superheroes, and the villains aren't doing much to help the heroes. They're sort of sitting back and let the heroes take the brunt of the damage, dealing with Godzilla and King Kong and what have you. And I don't know. This is a lot of fun, and I really hope that I I don't know what the sales are like for this, but I thought on the surface, yes, there's no question that DC is trying to turn as much of this into a money grab as possible. They are a corporation after all; they want to make money. But I will say that um, this is probably if this is probably worth it. This is probably going to be a pretty cool trade paperback at the end. If the adrenaline rush of the story continues like this, and if the ending is as fun as the journey's been so far, this will be a pretty great series to collect in trade or inevitable hardcover, especially if that hardcover roars back at you like the comic books you bought.
Yeah, you wonder, did Brian take Superman off the playing field because just it's harder to have him there because he's so powerful. He should be able to take out some of these monsters, maybe other than Godzilla, or was it just to show how formidable Godzilla is? Hard to say, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. But a wonderful series, a lot of fun so far. Speaking of Superman, up next we have Superman number 9, written by Joshua Williamson, guest artist on this issue, Bruno Redondo. Colors by Adriana Lucas, letters by Ariana Mayer. What do you think of this?
First, I want to give a shout out to the cover with Santa Claus with an homage to Action Comics number 1, 1938, with Santa Claus picking up the sleigh and the elf panicking out front. I thought it's my favorite cover. I Honestly, I did order it, but I don't know if it's a ratio cover. If it is, my retailer won't get it. But if it's a variant cover, I'll end up with it on my pull list. But that's my favorite cover of this week. There's also a great cover with Superman holding up the Daily Planet globe while handing a young child a teddy bear. I thought that was really nice by Mikel. It looks like Mikel Shannon's art, but I don't think it is. But in any event, it's a really nice cover, and there's a lot of nice covers this week, and there's one with Superman floating, hovering above the Daily Planet, and then a gorgeous cover B of the what is that? The Silver Banshee. Is that who that is? Uh,
Yeah, Silver Banshee. Yeah,
Silver
I
Banshee.
think
Yeah.
the cover where Superman's handing the teddy bear, that's Bruno Redondo.
Right. Oh,
I think Mikhail Yanin did the one you're talking about, the Action Comics homage.
Barge, yeah, but gorgeous, yeah. Uh, as for the story itself, I thought that Williamson, Action Comics. I've been enjoying Superman more than Action Comics this past year. Just because I'm not a big fan of the expanded Superman family, and I like to focus more when it's more focus on Superman and Lois, quite frankly. And in this issue, there's a lot of heartfelt moments where Lois is worried about Superman because he was infected with kryptonite last issue, where you had to wear the suit, and he ultimately ended up defeating the Chained, and the Chained is now incapacitated and incapacitated and imprisoned at Supercore. But Superman is potentially dying here. He's in fact kryptonite radiation poisoning, and Lois is in front of him here, and a beautiful series of images, 9-panel grid with Lois just remembering the first day she met Clark, remembering their wedding day, remembering when John, their son, was born. It was just it's some really nice heartfelt moments, and Williamson's done a good job of scripting that. I'll be honest, Williamson, I think, has, as a writer, I think he shines more. His best character moments as a writer uh, for DC have been in his Superman comics, and more so than it was any other of his DC work. And that's how come he's done a really good job here. I'm also Lena Luthor, Lex Luthor's daughter, now has a job at Supercorp, and she's a very intriguing character. Uh, and as you pointed out, she does seem to have Brainiac symbol on her forehead. Is she ultimately going to be revealed to be a tool of Brainiac somewhere down the road? I don't know. But she works at Supercorp, and she now has access to all the information of Supercorp that Superman or Lex have. And meanwhile, Superman finally he does wake up, and he slowly heals. But it's he they with the help of Mercy and Lois, they figure out that uh, Farm Pharma and Professor, what is it, Professor
Rat.
Rat? Yeah, he's
Yeah.
going to they're going to be going after Marilyn Moon Knight. So we get more of her, and she's still kind of a mystery. We don't know a lot about Marilyn Moonlight, but Superman's new outfits. It looks a little bit corny, I think, and a little bit overdone, but I guess it can be forgiven. I frankly think Lex Luthor's suit looks far more cool than the. I think his Superman suit looks a little bit. I think it looks a little bit flamboyant and over the top. Not that Lex is done, but I guess I just like Lex's suit better. Uh, I find that Superman makes some changes to the suit that I think were crazy. As Lex Luthor rightly criticizes Superman, saying, I gave you a suit that was the equivalent of a tank, and you converted it into an ambulance." And because Superman takes out some of the weapons that were in Luthor's suit, it just seemed like a really kind of dumb thing to do. I mean, even Batman wouldn't do that, but I guess that's how Superman thinks. Superman is always the fireman as opposed to the policeman. He's always thinking about rescue and help as opposed to battle and weapons. And so, in that respect, Williamson probably got it right, despite my wish that Superman maybe was a little bit more aggressively inclined sometimes. Uh, I love at the end where in their battle against Pharma or Farm, uh, they him and Marilyn Moonlight apparently get shot back in time into the west, into the past, into the wild west of Metropolis, where where we end up meeting the characters of Nighthawk and Cinnamon, which is pretty cool. I can't remember the last time I saw those characters. I can't remember. I know I've seen them before. And we got this new superhero character who doesn't have guns in the past, with what looks like to be Superman robbing a train with his white hat. And so it's going to be interesting to see where the next issue takes us. We're presumably going to get an origin for Marilyn Moonlight, and I I was intrigued by this. I continue to be when I get Superman every month. This is another one of those titles that is certainly going to be in my top 20, my top 10 because I enjoy it. It's one of the first comics I read because I'm invested in the story and I'm curious as to where it's going, and I absolutely love the art. And so yeah, I thought this continues to intrigue me, and I'm captivated by the story, and it pulls me in. and I love the art. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, great to see Bruno Redondo on an issue of Superman. You know, he's
Yeah.
not the regular artist; he's a regular artist over on Nightwing. So uh, he's missed a few issues of Nightwing lately. I'm sure one of them was to do this, which I find to be interesting, but I enjoy it. So whatever. Um, you know, Jamal Campbell's the regular artist on this, and his art has a certain charm to it. Bruno Redondo's art has that same sort of charm, so he's a good, you know, substitute, I guess. I mean, it probably asked him if he wanted to do it. It's probably like a bucket list thing for him to do a Superman story. You're right about the emotional moments too, that we get here, and how great Joshua Williamson is at doing that with Superman specifically. I think he tried it a lot on his Flash. It worked to varying degrees, but nowhere near as effective as it is here on Superman. I sort of thought, based on kind of the first scene with Lois reading some get well letters from the citizens of Metropolis to Superman, that we might have an issue where Superman was in a coma the whole time. But I think that Josh Williamson probably has too big of a story to tell. Because I would have liked that. If you remember the Superman annual that we got most recently, Superman wasn't in it. It was just a bunch of Superman adjacent storylines, which I really enjoyed. Sometimes it's great to see, you know, what other Superman supporting characters are up to. So I probably wouldn't have minded that, but at the same time, like I said, I think Josh Williamson probably couldn't afford to have an issue without Superman. So he shows up, or he wakes up. He even though Mercy and Lois kind of try to persuade him to take it easy, he's, you know, he knows Farm and Graft are going to go after Marilyn Moon Knight. He wants to be there for her, or what have you. I also agree with you on the suit. For me, the thing about the suit, like why? So it's supposed to protect him from kryptonite, but it appears to have no facial covering. But it's going to keep kryptonite gas from going in his ears. It's the fact that it covers his ears that just looks weird to me. You know, you can see his hair, and that's fine. So either have it cover his, you know, his hair and everything. I don't know. It just, the head part is what just looks wonky to me. Whatever. I hope it protects him from kryptonite if that's what it's supposed to do. I'll leave it at that. But then as far as him going into the Old West, I have mixed feelings about that. It sort of reminds me of what, you know, speaking of Nightwing, it sort of reminds me of what they're doing in Nightwing right now. They wanted to put Dick Grayson in pirate clothes, so they came up with a reason why he's in pirate clothes. It sort of feels like, oh, they just wanted Superman in the Old West, so they found a reason to put him in the Old West. So it feels a little bit like, you know, shoehorning it in. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the story to put him in the Old West just because they thought it'd be a cool idea and it would sell some books. And that's what I thought when I, you know, first found out he was going to go to the Old West. But I'll give a lot of credit to Joshua Williamson for having it happen in the story and having it make complete sense. We know Marilyn Moon Knight goes way, way back in Metropolis. Like, her history with Metropolis goes back decades and decades, if not centuries. So I'm sure she's going to show up in the story probably, you know, when she was still alive, and maybe we'll get her origin. Seeing Superman, you know, I just, you know, such a hypocrite. I said, they just wanted to put Dick Grayson in pirate gear. Seeing Superman in the white hat, you know, with the Western gear, it looked cool. It looked cool for all my, it's just, you know, wanting to put him in there. It's going to sell books. Yeah, that's that. If you're watching us on YouTube, yeah, that right there, that just looks cool. It just looks great. A little bit of old school Elseworlds, right? Superman as a gunfighter, but of course he doesn't actually need guns. He can just use his heat vision. So, yeah, curious to see where it's going to go from here. Obviously, the two little kids on the train are Farm and Graft. How are they still alive? You know, 2 centuries later. How does Marilyn Moon Knight fit in? Which I'm very curious to learn more about her. She has one of the best designs that I've seen in recent memory. Like, Jamal Campbell did a fantastic job. Her character design is amazing. The simple black and white, the straight brimmed hat, kind of the way she just glows on the page, just really amazing. So, yeah, I'm enjoying Superman so much. I've said it a bunch, but I'll say it again. I can't remember the last time I was enjoying both Action Comics and Superman this much, probably since the Triangle era. So somebody's doing something right. Yeah. Speaking of amazing issues, we both gave a nod to the debut issue for Batman Offworld as our book of the week when it came out. We have the second issue here, written by Jason Aaron, pencils by Doug Mahnke, inks by Jaime Mendoza, colors by David Barron, letters by Troy Petrie. What are your thoughts on Batman Offworld 2?
I love this. I continued the first issue. Jason Aaron is just, you know, I know that he's a mixed bag at Marvel. He started off with a bang at Marvel with his Thor run, and he did a pretty good job on that. And then, and as his as his various comics that he did at Marvel sort of continued on, I think that there was his writing became more and more divisive, and so it was an open question in some people's mind when they heard that he was coming to DC, what his debut would be. Well, this Batman Offworld, I think, has been absolutely stellar, and it's this type of writing that where he knows Batman, and it's just fantastic. And I hope that his run on Superman, he's going to be writing a 4-issue Bizarro run after PKJ and Action Comics. I'm hoping that will be equally as interesting as this one. Batman is in space. Batman wants to know how to kick alien asses because there was an alien that showed up in Gotham and he didn't know how to beat the alien. So Batman, only obsessive bastard that he is, spends 572 whatever $1 million, gets a rocket ship, flies up into space, and basically lets himself be captured because he wants to learn how to kick some alien ass. And while he's in this essentially this prison ship, he meets this Tamaranian, this gorgeous Tamaranian named Ione or Ione, uh, and she basically is she has a rough exterior but a soft heart ultimately, and she's willing to train Batman along with this other robot that Batman befriends to train him how to fight and learn the weaknesses of various alien races that are also captive and prisoners on this slave ship. And it's hilarious. There are scenes here that I just chuckle. I mean, Batman at one point he's in the engine room and he's the only person in the engine room to have had more than 5 cycles in the engine room because most people don't survive more than one cycle in this engine room. But not only does Batman survive, he has the unmitigated goal to A, never kill anybody, and two, to make it even worse, he's saving people's lives from being because of the harsh work environment, as one of the aliens calls him, "You stupid! What do you think you're doing? This is why you're not a war stormer. I swear I've never seen anyone more terrible at killing than you." And me selling this to Batman, and Batman is slowly building up a reputation amongst the prison amongst his fellow prisoners. He's the Batman. They don't call him Batman. He's the Batman. And of course, they don't know that his cape is just a piece of clothing. And he's building up a reputation more and more, and he's getting stronger and better. And he's learning, and he's learning how to kick alien ass. And what what uh, what writer Jason Aaron does so well is that in conjunction with the fantastic art by Doug Mankey, amazing art, is that it's funny. The exposition, it's not too heavy. This is a nice combination of getting into Batman's head and dialogue. It's a nice interplay between the two, and I don't I all the words here enhance my enjoyment of the story, especially how Batman is thinking, and and just his interaction, and you feel the sense and the impending uh, that Batman really is risking everything. And I particularly love his fellow prisoner here, Ione, 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 or is it Ione or Ione, however you pronounce the name. Anyways, I think she's just awesome. I hope we don't see. I hope this isn't the last we see of her. Ultimately, Batman makes a sacrifice. He helps orchestrate a prison break. They all basically escape, and Batman is ultimately saved, and he ends up on this prison planet. Pardon me, he ends up on another planet where once again Batman is on another planet that is basically a planet where there seems to be some sort of people that are enslaved on it, and they're being hunted by these wolf-like creatures. And once again, Batman is using it as a training field. It's sort of like that classic line from the Watchmen series where Rorschach says when he's in prison, I'm not trapped in here with you. You're locked up in here with me, or something to that effect. Wherever Batman goes, he owns where he is. And I love Jason Aaron. I just like Jason Aaron's very aggressive approach to Batman. determined, always preparing, always willing to learn, always willing to humiliate himself if it means it's going to make him better for the second time. Batman doesn't need to win every fight. He just needs to win the last fight. And that's his attitude toward Batman. I love the way I just this is just a fun, good Batman comic. You don't need to read anything before. You don't need to know anything about continuity. This is what Chip Zdarsky did when he wrote Batman the Knight, where Bruce Wayne was learning to be Batman. This is Batman learning to be Batman to the rest of the universe, to the rest of the galaxy. That's what I love about it. That's what makes it feel fresh and exciting and new. And so I continue to give it high praise, and we're just at the end of the second issue. What about yourself?
I was a little surprised that Batman escaped from the kind of the slaver ship already. Like I sort of thought that was the story we were going to get, right? Like Batman on the slaver ship. He was going to learn how to defeat these aliens. You talked about him making the incredible decision to fly out into space. We talked about it last issue because there's an enforcer in Gotham City that's one of these aliens. But yeah, different than that. A lot of context for Ione. You mentioned it. She's Temerian. We learn she's a very fascinating character, very well done by Jason Aaron. So I agree with you. I hope it's not the last we see of her. But based on her escape and taking some other prisoners with her, and I was like, okay, wait. So now we're getting off the slaver ship? Like I wasn't expecting that. I thought this was going to be the story of Batman getting out to the slaver ship, learning how to defeat the aliens. Training with this punch bot, as he calls it, and then from there, how does he get back? But instead, before even the end of the second issue, he's already off the ship and on to a new challenge. He's crash landed. He uses a escape pod to get off the ship. Crash lands on this planet that was a mining planet that's been decimated. We're told it used to be very verdant and people that very much were peaceful and harmonious with nature and what have you. Now it's all been stripped by this mining company. The very mining company that the slaver ship sells its slaves to. Now it's a harsh environment. There are some sort of alien wolves on the planet that feed on the native remaining population that's there. And, Batman, he's always going to, fight for the little guy. And so that's what we're going to have going forward. So what this has shown me in the second issue is that this story is going to be a little bit broader in focus than I initially thought. I thought it was going to be kind of a one quest for Batman. It seems like it's going to be more him traveling around the galaxy on different quests, I guess. Not so different from what Superman does at times. So that's pretty interesting. And I'll give Jason Aaron a lot of credit for going, you know what? I want to write I'm going to go over to DC, and play with some DC characters the first time. I'm going to write a cosmic story. Somebody out there, meeting these different alien races and up to the challenge. Yeah. So who am I going to pick? Am I going to pick Superman? Am I going to pick one of the Green Lanterns? There's any number of people that, you could choose. Superboy. Could even do something with somebody who you might not expect, like a Cyborg or Firestorm, something like that. No, I'm going to pick somebody who doesn't even have superpowers. I'm going to pick Batman, and I'm going to make it make sense. That's good writing. So whether it will continue to make sense, we'll have to wait and see. So far, he's knocking it out of the park. He does also have the advantage that no matter what he does, and knock on wood here, I don't think he'll do anything as ludicrous as Batman jumping from the moon or jumping from a satellite orbiting the moon. So he's got that going for him. It can't be that bad as long as he doesn't do that. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. The Doug Mahnke art. He's a fan favorite for a reason. His art is very detailed, very bombastic, and it really works for the series. And the David Barron colors are fantastic as well. All right, up next we have Catwoman issue number 60, 9 Lives Part 2, written by Tini Howard. Stefano Raphael is the artist, Veronica Gandini on colors, Lucas Gattoni on letters. I continue to really enjoy this story, but I also continue to have the same kind of nitpicks. And that's that at times it feels a little bit choppy. Again, I'm going to chalk it up to Tini Howard not having quite enough space to tell the story she wants to tell. So Catwoman, we know that she's got these extra lives, and so she's taken it upon herself to undertake these missions that she doesn't think that she'll necessarily survive, but it's okay because she has these extra lives. So she's going after this Bacchus little idol that in and of itself gives power to whoever possesses it, but it requires blood, it requires death, it requires whoever owns it or possesses it to keep killing people so that they'll continue to have power. She wants the thing destroyed. Um, and so she goes after the flamingo, who is an old nemesis of hers, in order to destroy it. She's sort of set up, and when she's ambushed, while we're not sure. We think she's dead. We're told she's dead. Turns out she was just unconscious and not dead. But during that time, she has a little bit of a dream and sees a clown who looks sort of like the Joker, but maybe it's not the Joker. Intimated that it's somebody else, maybe the person pulling the strings that gave her the extra lives. We're not really sure. But it happens after she gets poisoned, like a needle in the neck. And then this happens, and we're like, wait, so did she get drugged and this is the next day? Like, it's not clear. And then once we get done with that page where she's talking to this clown, she's in a room where she's like chained up. Okay, turns out that it took me a minute to figure it out. I'm like, oh, wait. So that was like a vision or a dream she had
Yeah.
while she was
That was my interpretation.
dead slash unconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's clearly what it is. But my point being, it pulled me out of the story that I had to stop and figure that out.
Yeah.
So that's where I get, when I mentioned, sometimes it's choppy like that. And again, I think it's because there's just not quite enough room. There's just not quite enough economy of story from Tini Howard. Again, it's a minor nitpick. Overall, I enjoyed this. Come to find out, Catwoman lost 2 lives on the last issue when she thought she only lost 1. In this one, she thinks she loses 1. Turns out she didn't lose any. She actually made it through this mission without losing any lives. So I liked that. She goes, oh, I'm 1 up again. Lucky, lucky cat. I like that. There is an element of Catwoman that's not so different from Black Cat over at Marvel, where luck is a factor. And so I like that that's thrown in here. I also thought the art was pretty solid. So overall, I think the Tini Howard run on Catwoman, a lot of people, I think it gets a bad rap. Like, I think people are unnecessarily or overly harsh on it. I'm not saying it's like the best version of Catwoman ever, but I feel like a lot of them are just bashing on it because they tried it early on. It was a little choppy. They're just hating on it now to hate on it, and they're not really giving it a fair shake. Because I think overall, especially the Stefano Raphael line work and the Veronica Gandini colors in this issue in particular are really, really strong. There's a fantastic main cover from David Nakayama. So overall, I really enjoyed this issue. What'd you think?
I agree with your one constructive criticism that it is a little bit. Some of the scene transitions are a little jarring. Like, it took me a while to figure out that was a dream sequence when she saw the jester with the cat eyes, and I think that what's see the concept here is it's kind of cool, but the way it comes across and the way that Teenie Howard is pacing this story, it's not near as effective as it could be. The idea that the asteroid or that meteor that came down that bestowed immortality upon Vandal Savage, that the impact, the effect that would have on Catwoman, that it literally gave her 9 lives. It's a little bit tropey, but okay, well, it's kind of cool. All right, well, what's the secret? Like, why would it give her 9 lives? But more particular, one of the things that, and this might just be me as a reader, but one of the things that's missing for me is I don't understand why. What's the obsession that Selena has? First of all, she concludes that she has 9 lives. Okay, she loses 2. Why the rush? Why all of a sudden does she feel a rush to run out and risk her life 8 times? So she has 1 left. Apparently has she really had 8? I mean, how many? Like, I just thought it was kind of funny that all of it. Oh, she actually has like 8 suicide missions, potential suicide missions she's always wanted to go on. Thank God she happens to have 9 lives, so she's going to go on 8 suicide missions because there's things that she's always wanted to do, but she never had the courage or the bravery to do before because she was fearful she could die. That has an element of cowardice to it. That doesn't sound like Selena Kyle to me. If you were to tell Selena Kyle, look, Selena, there's a big score here. It's called the Idol of Bacchus, but you don't want to go on, and this mission's too tough for you. You could get killed. Would Selena Kyle say, "Oh, I could get killed. Well, I'm not going to do that"? I'm not immortal. I mean, to me, it's like I can't think of any. If Selena really wanted to do something and felt so passionate about it, she would risk her life anyway. I think. Again, it's a minor nitpick. Uh, I'm so compelled to play script doctor here. It would have made more sense to me if she had 9 lives and she was forced to use up the lives in a particular time period. You've got 6 months to use up 8 lives, and for every life you don't use up, if you don't use up your 9 lives, somebody you love will die. Like, so you have to use up the 9 lives. So she has to go on a suicide mission and she can't plan. And the planning is a little haphazard. And I think it would have more gravitas that way, more of a haphazard nature, because these stories so far feel haphazard. They feel that Selena's making mistakes, that she's doing things she wouldn't normally do. She's surprisingly, she's a little bit more incompetent than, not quite on her game. I mean, she's taken on the flamingo, for God's sakes. Is this really what Selena has in the mind? She wants to, even the first story, she's taken on some Mexican thief, and now it's the pink flamingo. I mean, this is almost kind of insulting to the character. Again, maybe I'm being a little harsh, but I will admit, beside it's a beautiful cover, a pink cover with the little purple outfit of Catwoman. Cover looks fantastic, but I just, I'm not really feeling the gravitas of this, because if this is Catwoman, she's like in my view, she prepares like Batman. She's the best thief in the world, and she wants to go on. She's giving herself suicide missions, and these missions seem so small and pathetic, and they don't have the gravitas that I think this character deserves. And but again, I love the concept, but what that Teeny Howard has in mind here, it just feels like that. But the way it's playing out, it just feels so small to me. Big concept, small story is how it feels. But maybe they'll get better as her suicide missions that she's given herself uh, evolve. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, so Mexican assassin, not a Mexican thief,
Sorry.
and you're falling victim to the same thing you fell victim to in Gotham War, um, and it's totally understandable here, more so understandable here than Gotham War. We're told that assassin was the most dangerous assassin in the world now, and so that's why it was so dangerous. Now, the fact that she's never shown up in the DC universe or been mentioned previously makes it like, well, how could this be the most dangerous assassin in the DC universe when we never heard of her before? But everybody's got to show up for the first time at some point.
Yeah.
And then the same thing here. This idol of Bacchus creates an environment that's very very dangerous. The missions are what the missions are, and to me they feel like they're pretty dangerous. But at the same time, again, this is a new concept, right? And it is the flamingo who you can never really take seriously. Um, so yeah, I get what you're saying. And the other thing that doesn't help sell this particular mission as very dangerous is, didn't it feel awfully convenient? Like, she didn't have that much trouble taking the statue, and then the statue gets hit by a giant 18 wheeler and destroyed. And okay,
Yeah.
like it seemed so easy. How was this so dangerous? So I get what you're saying. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I gotta go by what I'm being told. These are dangerous missions, even though they don't feel like it. I get you 100%. All right, up next we have Jay Garrick, The Flash, #3 from writer Jeremy Adams. Diego Orlatuga is the artist. Luis Guerrero on colors. Steve Wands on letters. What are your thoughts on this one?
Um, just bringing it up here. Okay. I've this is I'm feeling fairly meh about this series, to be honest. I'm not. It's not really resonating with me as much as I hoped that it would. But yeah, I am intrigued. I will give credit to Jeremy Adams. What he's doing, and I think it is actually working, is, and it's even stated in the story itself. The as the Yeah, uh, Judy Garrick, uh, I guess Boom. She seems to be traveling back in the past. So it's weird. She's traveling back in the past to have adventures with her dad in the 1940s, and also having adventures with him in the present. That appears to be what she's doing. And that's kind of an interesting thing. So she's getting the best of both worlds. She can interact with her younger version of her dad, that she missed out on all those adventures, but she's going back in time and having adventures with him, and then also having adventures with him in the present. And meanwhile, there's this villain who we don't know who this villain is, but he has the ability to control the elements, and he's the central villain who ultimately at the end is is revealed to be this ends up he's revealed to be a Professor Hughes, the man responsible for Jay Garrick becoming the Flash. So that's interesting. I also really like that Jeremy Adams is introducing some of the characters he introduced us to in his Flash run, particularly Mr. Terrific's son and Fair Play. So we've got I forget what the hell is his it's Fair Play and Quiz Kid. So they show up, and so we get uh, Jeremy Adams is playing with these action figures in his sandbox the way almost like continuing like he used to play with them when he was writing Wally West Flash. And that's what I think most of us will really enjoy is that type of storytelling that we missed in Flash. We're getting it here with Jay Garrick, the Flash, and 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 we're getting the best of both worlds because I sort of like the fact that Boom seems to be going back and forth. So we're getting the past, we're getting 1940s Jay Garrick, so we're getting kind of a quasi Justice Society adventure, and we're getting a present day Justice Society with the next legacy era of kids, and so we're getting a combination of family, fun, and speedsters, all wrapped up in this comic, and so it's it's not bad. It's not bad. I don't know really what what I was expecting, but I'm getting exactly what was in Wally West Flash. I find it really interesting what's going to happen at some point. Boom can't just continue to travel back and her traveling back in the past all the time, or it seems to be suggested she was doing that. That seems a little bit odd to me, and yet she seems to be able to do that, and she's doing that. At some point, you know, that seems like you're cheating a bit, but yet that seems to be an interesting paradox to me. I'm not sure how Adams is gonna reconcile that, because what was the point of being lost in time if all your memories are returning and you can just travel in the past? I mean, if she can travel into the past, why doesn't Boom just travel in the past and stay in the past? Like I don't know so why not do that? I so
Why
I'm
not
a little
travel
bit
to the
confused.
past? Travel to the past and prevent yourself from being kidnapped and gone for
Yeah,
50 years?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's an open
Yeah.
question. I don't know. Maybe I missed a plot point here, but it just seems a little bit intriguing to me. Why would I mean, if you had a choice, would you rather live in a future when your parent when you're if you're 16, would you rather live in a future where your parents are 90 years old, or live in the past where they're like 35 and 40? Come on, like it just seems a little bit odd to me. So I find it a sort of it's sort of an odd situation for Boom to be in, and yet it doesn't seem to be directly addressed in the story itself. So maybe I'm just overthinking it. But anyways,
No,
what?
it's a legitimate question. It's a problem that's inherent in time travel. So I won't get into it. This felt very much like a transitional issue for me. I feel like not that much happened. The Diego Orlatuga art is fantastic. We did get the reveal of who Doctor Alchemy is. How that's all going to play out, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I do wish the series focused a little bit more on just on the Flash family, just on Jay Garrick and um, his wife and his daughter. But I don't hate seeing the rest of the Justice Society, especially like seeing Mister Terrific and his son and Quiz Kid. That makes sense that we'd see him here. Those characters intrigue me as well. It makes sense that Stargirl and Judy Garrick would befriend each other. So everything makes sense, but yeah, I feel like we didn't get a lot of forward momentum in this story, um, and I don't know where sort of this little corner of the DC universe goes. Like we know Justice Society's ending. This spun out of a lot of the seeds that Jeff Johns planted in his Flashpoint Beyond that Jeremy wrote with him along with with Tim Sheridan. Um, but I don't know. Jeff Johns not at DC anymore. What happens to these characters? I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess we'll see. It runs a risk of doing something I was talking about earlier, right? Not mattering if this corner of the DCU is just going to be shuffled off, forgotten, mothballed, or even worse than that, somebody else come in and do something completely different and throw all this out. I don't know. I wish DC would turn around and say, okay, Jeff's moving on. He wants to focus on his Ghost Machine imprint over at Image or what have you. Hey, Jeremy, why don't you write Justice Society, or why don't you,
Yeah.
take over the controls of this, little corner of what Jeff has built? Because these are beloved characters, man. That Justice Society run that Jeff Johns did, people still reference it all the time. You could bring a Hawkman or Hawkgirl series in under this kind of same corner as well. I know everything doesn't line up completely 100%. I mean, we've talked a lot about how the Power Girl that's in this corner of DC doesn't match the Power Girl that's over in Leah Williams' series at all. Um, but that's minor in my mind.
Yeah.
All right, up next we have Nightwing number 109, written by Tom Taylor. Stephen Byrne is the artist, Adriana Lucas on colors, Wes Abbott on letters. Stephen Byrne has been drawing this entire sort of pirate arc that Nightwing has been on, which I guess gave Bruno Redondo a chance to do that Action Comics issue. So speaking of choppy, we saw at the end of last issue, Beatrice Blood was stabbed by her stepbrother, I guess for lack of a better term, and left for dead. Nightwing jumps into the water, jumps off a cliff, goes after her, saves her, but we don't actually get to see that. He just dives in, and then we get a flashback of him learning how to um, treat wounds from Alfred by stitching up a pig in the Batcave back in the day. And then the next scene we get in present day, B's in a bed in a room somewhere. So a little bit choppy. And then you go to the next page, and now they're flying in a seaplane, meeting up with the Hold. And then her stepbrother shows up. Nightwing defeats him, and he gets the contents of the box that was in the Hold that started this whole adventure off in the first place. And it's a CD-ROM that has security footage of Tony Zuko sabotaging the trapeze that his parents were on the night that they died. So if that sounds like a very simple story that jumped from A to B to C to D, that's 100% what it was. you know, a lot of times people complain about Tom Taylor's stories not doing anything, not going anywhere. The plot doesn't advance. This is sort of the opposite of that. It advances very quickly, almost at a choppy pace. It's fine. I didn't mind it. I was ready to move on from Nightwing as a pirate anyway. So curious to see what's going to happen next. I know it's supposed to this getting the security footage and proof that Tony Zuko killed his parents is supposed to really like be impactful and fire Dick Grayson up or whatever. But regardless of whether he had proof or not, he already knew. So that feels a little forced to me for him. Oh, now he's got footage. Now he's got irrefutable proof. Oh, so now he's gonna no, he's gonna go after Tony Zuko if he's gonna go after Tony Zuko. Uh, that never made sense to me. Why he would let Zuko ever be out of prison. But story reasons, I guess. Got to have a Batman or Dick Grayson Nightwing fired up about something. So the art by Stephen Byrne's great. I don't enjoy it as much as the Bruno Redondo art. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see where this goes from here as far as the Tony Zuko stuff. Because like I said, it felt a little forced. But I definitely enjoyed seeing B as this pirate queen. That was probably my favorite thing about this little arc. So what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Well, this story is very, very smooth. One thing about Tom Taylor's stories, they are smooth. The transitions are very smooth, and often he's gifted. He's following in Tom King's footsteps. Tom Taylor is often gifted with very talented artists, and Stephen Byrne is no exception, or whether it's him or Redondo. But just there is a feeling sometimes, and maybe it's just that I'm spoiled, but there's a feeling that not much happens. Uh, who cares that he finds a tape that Zuko it shows Zuko, you know, or sabotaging the trapeze that killed his parents. We already know that. I mean, who cares? I mean, so he finds Zuko and puts him in prison. This is boring. I mean, that's just, you know what I mean? Like we kind of know that. I mean, if we know Joe Chill killed, was the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. Well, how exciting would a story be if Batman, took out Joe Chill? He's just the, you know, I was like, okay, man, all that for that. But having said that, what I liked about this issue, and maybe this is why this plays into why Taylor's stories maybe do seem to resonate with so many fans, including myself at the end, because I complain about the lack of plot progression. On the other hand, there's something absolutely beautiful about this story. It's very easy to read. We get a really good origin for Captain Blood, the origin for Bloodhaven. Beatrice here, she's beautiful. I mean, she's a beautiful pirate queen. I mean, and Bruce Wayne, or pardon me, Dick Grayson saving her, flashback to him, Alfred. I mean, that was kind of a useless flashback, but you understand that that's the training he got. This is really flushing out for a brand new audience. If you want to understand Dick Grayson to a new generation of readers, boy, oh boy, you couldn't get better than Nightwing, because Tom Taylor doesn't rush the narratives. He pretty much spoon feeds the reader, but with a very straightforward, easy to follow story, and gifted with absolutely beautiful art. And so, there's that. Again, as a longtime reader, I do want a little bit more substance, and I'm just not getting it with Nightwing, and just started getting it with Titans. And so I don't know. I think there'll always be that interplay with Taylor, where I like when he has maybe his when he doesn't have to worry about continuity. He tends to pack more substance into Deceased and Dark Knights of Steel and what have you, as opposed to his more mainstream titles here. But overall, it's not bad. It's just like you said, not a heck of a lot happens.
It's so interesting that you think it's smooth and I'm saying it's choppy. It's yeah. I mean, I agree with you. It's that typically he's good at transitions, and certainly from panel to panel is uh, very smooth. But yeah, this one in particular, and it doesn't happen often, but this one in particular had those. It felt like the story had those jumps. Again, he dives in after her, and then we see her in bed. It's like, so. I guess maybe he didn't have a good idea. It was just him. Okay, I'm going to swim down. I'm going to pick her up. I'm going to take her to shore.
Yeah.
He didn't bother to show that.
Well, it's just that what I meant by smooth is that it was very, very, very easy to figure out what happened, because the reason why they made those jumps is that it was obvious. Well, he rescued her. Well, he needs a med. Well,
Yeah.
so they, thank God at least we never saw that, because it's so obvious what he did. But that's another example of the lack of anything actually exciting or different happening. So it was
Yeah.
just, you know what I mean? Like, it's so
Yeah.
predictable that he's not even bothering with the scenes anymore. I mean, that's where I'm getting
Yeah.
a little bit
I get what you're
frustrated.
saying.
Yeah.
She could have been in the clutches of a giant crab underwater, and
Yeah.
he could have had to fight the crab. That's
Yeah.
exciting. But yeah, didn't want to. It just felt like, okay, it's time. It was time to end this pirate storyline, so I'm going to end it in one issue, and I'm going to have a few jumps in time to get that done. So,
Yeah.
all right. Up next, we have Titans Beastworld Tour Central City #1. Multiple stories in here. Kind of the spine story. The story keeps coming back to is written by Cy Spurrier with art by Scott Koblish, colored by Hi-Fi, letters by Hassan Othman Elhau, and stars Barry Allen and Irie West. They're trying to get all the speedsters together to stop what's going on in Central City with all the spores infecting people. One of the other kind of interludes, if you will, that stars Wallace West is written by Jarrett Williams, art by George Kamambatis, colors by Matt Herms, and letters by Hassan Othman Elhau. That's the same writer that's writing the Speed Force series right now, so probably not a surprise that we see Roundhouse show up to team up with Wallace there, and even makes reference to the Speed Force series. Then we jump back to the main spine story, like I said, with Cy Spurrier, and then we get a series with an interlude with Jay and Maxine Baker that's written by Alex Packnadel with art by Serge Acuna, colors by Matt Herms, letters by Hassan Othman Elha. This is my favorite of the stories by far, because it's basically Maxine and Jay on a first date. It's clear they like each other, but they're both really nervous, trying to have this date when uh, you know, basically it gets interrupted because of what's going on with Beastworld, and we get to see Jay struggling with his powers, and um, it's pretty interesting what happens there. And then we go back to the main series again, um, just very briefly with the Flash family trying to figure out how they're going to stop Godspeed, who's been turned into a wasp. Been a long time since we've seen Godspeed, who's a Joshua Williamson creation when Williamson was writing the Flash. And then we see Circuit Breaker show up, who's a character I think has only shown up once before in the pages of the Flash. She teams up with, or they, I think they're non-binary. They team up with Pied Piper, and that's in a story by A.L. Kaplan, who handles everything: um, the line art, the story, the colors, everything but the lettering, which is Hassan Otsman El. That one was a little rough, was a little hard to follow, and a little choppy with the dialogue and what have you. And then we get back to the kind of that spine story, as I said, where Maxine Baker convinces all members of the Flash family to take the spores into them, and basically they all become insects because then they have sort of a hive mind with Barry Allen sort of as the queen bee, for lack of a better term, where they can all work together instinctively to save the people of Central City. And the story's to be continued in Titan's Beastworld. And if that sounds completely ludicrous to you, that they would purposely get infected by the spores and all turn into insects, bees, wasps, whatever, I 100% agree with you. There's references to Cy Spurrier's run on The Flash, which has been, I'm sorry, not good. It's been an absolute mess so far. Um, if you pick this up because you are enjoying Titan's Beast World and you're not reading Flash, uh, then you'll know exactly what the Flash series is like. And if you pick this up and you really like the chaotic nature of it, then I would suggest you go and pick up Cy Spurrier's Flash. But if you don't like the chaotic nature of this, or the chaotic nature of Cy Spurrier's Flash, then don't read this because it was a bit of a chore to get through. Um, I thought the art was okay in places. I've definitely seen Scott Koblish do better, but I feel like he was he was given a tough assignment writing the story and trying to make it make sense, especially with them transitioning into insects and what have you. And a lot of these art styles are they don't mesh well together, so that's another challenge as well. I mean, these anthologies, we've talked a lot about them in recent episodes, as in terms of events and how we wish DC wouldn't run their events like this. We don't get to make that call. But as bad as most of the anthologies, or I won't say bad, but as average as most of the anthologies have been, this is one of the worst ones that I've read. I'm trying to stay positive, but I don't want you guys to go out there and pick this up thinking, "Oh my God, so good." But that being said, I did really enjoy the Jay Maxine first date story. That stood a head and shoulders above the rest of this. Um, so credit where credit's due to Alex Packnadell. That was 100% because of the interaction. Like it felt very real. If these kids felt nervous, they felt very much like preteens on a first date. So yeah, that one was really good. The rest of them, eh. So I don't know. Maybe you had a different experience, Rocky. Did you enjoy this?
Well, I do think that I enjoyed it. I would say I just in guessing from the way you sounded there, I did enjoy it more than you did. I do think that of all the crossovers of I guess anthology issues coming out of Beast World, this is the best one so far in my opinion. Only and a lot of it has to do with I really like the Jay and Maxine going on a date. I do note that them being on a date is really odd. They've clearly been aged up. I thought they were 8 or 9 years old, maybe 10 years old. In fact, I thought Jay was younger. So for them suddenly to be old enough to be dating each other, I think I always saw them as being much younger than that, but that's a minor nitpick. Obviously, DC wants they want them all to be teenagers, so they're aging them up artificially, despite the fact that I don't think it really makes a lot of sense in terms of the strict continuity wise, but that's all well and good. I like it felt like Jeremy Adams wrote parts of this issue with between Jay and Maxine on that date, and of course Irie being Maxine pretending to have the stomach flu because she doesn't want to upset Max, tell Irie that she has a crush on her brother. Of course, it's the worst kept secret. Everybody knows that. I like the fact that it's interesting that you were so hard on the plot point that Maxine Baker, who was Animal Girl, I mean, her father's Animal Man. If Beast Boy can possess a giant whale and take on a giant a giant starfish and lead all these spores, I would think that Maxine Baker as Animal Girl could probably handle just maybe controlling just the Flash family with her animal-like powers and her connection to the red or whatever. So I actually let that fly a little bit. If I'm going to cut Beast Boy some flack, I thought I'd cut that to Maxine. I will say that I did cringe. I didn't still, nonetheless, despite my defending that plot point, it did make me cringe a little bit. But I do think that with Matt, it maybe is hinting at a future plot point, maybe with her father, Animal Man, coming back into the fray at some point. And because Animal Man, I got the impression, kind of went a little bit insane in the first issue of Beastworld. Animal Man, you got the impression he was so overwhelmed by a million animals suddenly being on the earth. Maybe he's overwhelmed. Does his daughter Maxine Baker? Why wasn't she overwhelmed? But maybe she's. I'm surprised that she wasn't incapacitated too. But in any event, I thought it was interesting. Godspeed becoming a murder hornet was kind of funny. Impulse changing into a rat and having Circuit Breaker and Pied Piper trying to take on Impulse and incapacitate him. There were some interesting interactions here, and I thought there was fun to be had here. There was a fun element here that actually reminded me a little bit of Jeremy Adams' Flash run, to be honest. So I actually didn't mind it. So if you're a fan of the Flash family and the Flash set of characters, I actually think this is one of the better ones in my opinion. It's still not necessary. You absolutely don't need to pick it up. But if you're reading Beastworld and you're wondering why the Flash family looks like a bunch of bumblebees, this issue will tell you why. So it's not bad.
Yeah, you know what I realized? We forgot to talk about the backup from Nightwing, where apparently in Gotham City there's a lot fewer people that are infected with the spores, and come to find out it's because some characters, a new character created by Tom Taylor, is she green, and he showed her off on Twitter, and people are like, oh, who's this? She's capturing all the people and imprisoning them in cages underneath the Gotham City Zoo. Damian goes there. He discovers this, gets attacked. She forces him to eat a spore. It seems like she's forcing these people infected with spores to fight against each other, maybe charging a mission or something, some kind of gladiator battles or what have you. He turns into a cat. So Damian is a cat there it is. There she is in Beast Wars. So Speculator alert, new character. We don't even know her name yet. But apparently she's not a nice person, according to Tom Taylor. So I don't really have much else to add. Thought the Sami Basri art was fine. I'm not a Damian fan, so whatever. Kind of interesting that he turns into a little kitty cat, though. Not exactly ferocious. So anyway, anything you want to add about the backup before we?
Yeah, it makes me wonder if that backup. You got to wonder if that female character has any relationship to Beast Boy. Is there any relation? She kind of looks. She's got like what looks to be like a lizard, a tattoo of a lizard or a salamander on one leg and some other creature on the other. So she looks like she's got animal symbols tattooed all over her green skin. So interesting, very interesting. So I don't know what her name is, but yeah, Speculator alert. That's a good. I'm glad you were. I completely forgot. I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, because we were talking about Beast World, it reminded me. Oh, by the way, Damian is a kitty cat. All right, on to the last book we're going to talk about in detail. Maybe the best book of the week, Wonder Woman #4. Tom King is the writer, Daniel Sampere on art, Tomei Mori on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. Give us your thoughts on this one, Rocky. I have mixed feelings.
Well, uh, uh, oh man, I look, Tom King. It's quite apparent that there's a. Uh, I almost feel like compelled to talk about some of what I thought were laughable reactions by a certain segment of the comic collecting community to Wonder Woman #3, who apparently lost their minds because of the way they felt that the military was being, because of how it dealt with the uh, suicide of a member of the military, which was obviously caused by the bad guy in the story, and just insane overreaction to it. Uh, but haters are gonna hate Tom King no matter what he scripts, and I can already see the criticism of this one. Uh, there is a certain segment that will criticize Tom King for killing kids, and whether it's the Joker, and God forbid there's violence in a comic book, as if somehow that's new. But in this one here, I'm sure they'll find a way to criticize it because this is the exact opposite of a child dying, but it's a dying child, so they'll probably find some way to criticize that. Uh, Look, this is a feel good comic book. This is meant to portray. This is meant to portray that even in the midst of battle, even in the midst of an entire country that's slowly being manipulated by the sovereign to be against Wonder Woman and the Amazons, Wonder Woman finds time to keep a promise, and in this case, go to the bed of a dying boy named Jack. Now, after everything I just said, is it a little bit tropey here? Yeah. Is it? It is. I will. I have to acknowledge that. At the same time, this was really heartfelt, and there were moments in here in this story where, frankly, I choked up a bit. I did. It did. I felt it. I thought it was. I thought young Jack here. Uh, is so excited to see Wonder Woman as the Sovereign is sort of narrating the series, and as it's established that the Sovereign is manipulating the president, and as the Sovereign has apparently manipulated all the presidents since back to the founding fathers. Tom King is really playing it heavy here that the Sovereign is super powerful and has been manipulating presidents all the way back. I think Tom King is overplaying the power of the Sovereign. I think he's too heavy-handed on the villain, and I think he's too heavy-handed on the misogyny in this story. He doesn't need to be as heavy-handed as he is to make this work. Um, but that's the way he's playing it. And even Amanda Waller shows up, and Amanda Waller is even Amanda Waller. She speaks in a language, or she's speaking in code words, and there's some Tom King eccentricity here. Instead of Amanda Waller referencing Giganta, Maxwell Lord, Doctor Psycho, Hercules, Silver Banshee, and Angleman, he has Amanda Waller refer to the big one, the charmer, the doctor, the half god, the bird, and the triangle idiot. Why? Like Amanda Waller would probably, when speaking to, in speaking to Sarge Steele, I don't think she'd necessarily talk in that sort of coded language. Although, I get a sense of the pretentiousness of Tom King. So while I started off talking, maybe criticizing those who don't appreciate what Tom King does, here I am criticizing Tom King as I'm getting into this story. He does tend to give a lot of fodder to his detractors at times, and I think unnecessarily so. And that's on Tom King, because he doesn't need to be as heavy-handed as he often will script his stories. There's a good story here. There's a good story here of America being manipulated by a bad guy to who has an agenda against the Amazons. But there is a lot of always behind the scenes. There's always a little bit more that seems to play into it, that seems to ruffle some feathers. But I think there is a story here to be had. I felt the emotions of I love Jack's conversation with Wonder Woman, young Jack, and I love the fact that Wonder Woman even says, "Just a minute, I got to kiss my daughter goodnight." Um, uh, the fact that she takes Jack to in the midst of all this chaos going on in Wonder Woman's life, she decides to take this young boy Jack, who's dying of cancer, to Paradise Island, even though men aren't supposed to be on Paradise Island. So that's the central conceit. Men aren't supposed to be on Paradise Island, and yet she's going to take this dying boy to Paradise Island, and then she speaks to the Amazons in a way that, well, the Amazons have to remind Wonder Woman that you can't have men on Paradise Island, and she says, well, laws are forged by women trying to escape barbarity. She's suggesting, of course, that it's an outdated law, it's foolish. Clearly we can read between the lines. This is a harmless child. You can infer why I'm here. Kind of stop being so stuck up. And besides which, if you don't let me take this dying child onto this island, I'm gonna humiliate you and beat you all up. It's a little bit of hypocrisy there, but it underscores sort of the tension of the hypocrisy of the Amazons, the hypocrisy of Themyscira, uh, and it sort of underscores why the world and why the U.S. is United States, and why it's so easy for the sovereign to get people to think the worst of the Amazons, because they are kind of backward in some of their thinking. Some of their laws don't make a hell of a lot of sense, and so, but at the same time, Wonder Woman chooses love. She chooses kindness. She chooses compassion. She embraces kindness. And even in the midst of her, arguably one of her most darker adventures, where the world is potentially even heroes are going to be against her, she decides to help this dying child, to fulfill this dying child's wish to see Paradise Island. And and in the midst of all of it, there's some beautiful language here. There's some beautiful language that Tom King is really good at. Unfortunately, what often happens is, because of all the other stuff and all the other subjects that range from the political to the militaristic to issues with the sovereign and everything else, I think a lot of the more heartfelt moments will frankly be lost by people that are too pissed off on other elements. I personally, I just look at this as Wonder Woman choosing compassion, and the message here is that even in the midst of all the chaos, Wonder Woman is going to fulfill this young boy's wish, and she finds time to do it. She finds time to love, and at one point, the boy even talks about, he feels different. He wonders if why he got sick was because he feels different. Is it because why is his favorite hero Wonder Woman and not Batman and Superman like all the other boys? Why doesn't he like baseball? Why doesn't he like things like other boys do? There's an implication here, perhaps an inference that maybe he's different. Maybe he'd grow up to be LGBTQ. Maybe he'd grow up feeling different. And the message here is that, it's all about love. Whoever you are, be free to be who you want to be. It is a beautiful message in the midst of this story that causes controversy and ruffles more than a few feathers. There is a beautiful part here that exemplifies Wonder Woman in all her glory, that even in the midst of this woman who comes from an island of of women who have their own set of laws that are ruffling the feathers of the United States of America, she still will find time to help a young boy and to fulfill his dream of meeting her and going to Paradise Island. And so I enjoyed this. Did the story progress very much? No. Was this kind of tropey in a sense? Yes. Was the art fantastic? Absolutely. There's a beautiful scene where Wonder Woman tells the young boy just to open his eyes. He's in an invisible jet, and as he looks down, you don't see the jet. And even as the reader, it looks absolutely fantastic thanks to the Michael Janin art. It really works well. There's a scene with Steve Trevor standing up for Wonder Woman and being, his fellow Marines or military men. He gets into a fight with them because everyone's being manipulated against the Amazons. So I got mixed feelings about this issue. I really love the personal element of it, but at the same time, Tom King does frustrate me because he just unnecessarily doubles down. he he does feel sometimes that he's poking the bear unnecessarily, uh, at a time in our culture where you don't need to poke the bear so much to get your point across, but that's kind of what I feel that he's doing. So I get frustrated because I've been enjoying this story. It's still better than the Clunrad's run by far, but I do have mixed feelings about it. My mixed feelings are appeased somewhat because I really do like the backup with the younger tale with Mercy, with the Black Mercy and John Kent and a young a young Trinity and John Kent and Damian Wayne. But before we talk about the backup, what did you think about the main story?
Yeah. So it's funny. You said, yeah, she, you know, it's not in bed with a young boy. She goes to his bedside. Let's make that clear. Let's
Sorry,
not give let's
got
not
to
give
clarify.
anybody any more fodder. I sort of, yeah, I do agree to some extent. Like, I want Tom to be able to tell the story that he wants to tell, but yeah, it does seem sometimes like he's, uh, purposely going a little overboard. Like, for me, like, the biggest thing, and for any story anybody tells, and I hope you guys all listen to our review of the lot that we did for 12 Days of the Comic Source Presents Bad Idea, because we talk about story and how it impacts us and how important it is and what have you. And so I'm bringing my sensibilities to this story. And when this soldier commits suicide after being manipulated by the Sovereign, and leaves a suicide note blaming it on Wonder Woman, it's so over the top, absolutely ludicrous and stupid that anybody would think that Wonder Woman hasn't. Like, what that tells me? It tells me this guy was, if I didn't know that the Sovereign had manipulated him because I read the story, but if I'm a citizen in the DC universe and I hear that happened, you know what I immediately think? Well, that guy had some mental issues. He shot it. First of all, you have to be suffering from some kind of mental issues to commit suicide in the first place, right? Whether it's depression or some other condition that drives you to do that. Sane people don't commit suicide. It's that simple. Um, Maybe with the possible exception of somebody who's in debilitating pain from some kind of terminal illness, that's more assisted suicide or what have you. But anyway, be that as it may, if I'm a citizen of the DC universe and I hear that, this guy killed himself and he blamed it on Wonder Woman, I'd think, that, PTSD, like any number of things before I think it's actually Wonder Woman's fault. But the depressing thing is you could actually see this happening, right? You could actually see that, or believe this to be possible in, today's society, as, fractured as it is or what have you. So that just, it just bothers me. Like, it bothers me that unfortunately it's a little, too possible. But also it, as you said, it's doubling down on the misogyny a whole hell of a lot. I also agree with you that this idea that the Sovereign is so powerful. He's got presidents kissing his ring, and yet we've never heard of him before. But it goes back to what I was saying when I was talking about the Tinny Howard series, the Catwoman series, where it's like, well, everybody's got to appear for the first time at some point. So, the Sovereign's been around for a long time. We just have to kind of take that, as we do. But for the main part of the story, Superman, or Wonder Woman rather, spending time with this young boy that has a terminal illness, and how heartfelt it is, and how, especially that moment where he's like, is there something wrong with me? Why do I, feel this particular way? Like, it's hard not to get choked up, like you said, because it's so, there's just something about it that King does that makes it so poignant. And so, you got to give him a lot of credit for making a very heartfelt story, and to juxtapose the care and the love that Wonder Woman is showing for this boy who at the beginning of the story is a stranger to her. And, while all the hatred is going on, that's a powerful tool that King is using to show, the contrast, right, between the hatefulness of the Sovereign who's manipulating everything, manipulating events to happen in a certain way, and who Wonder Woman herself is. So that's pretty impressive for King to do that. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this series as well. I think that I haven't heard much of the online hate. I tend to kind of curate my social media to, I just have all those people blocked, to be honest. I don't really care about their opinions. They're morons in my mind. So I don't listen to anything they have to say. But yeah, this series is absolutely fantastic in my mind. And the Daniel Sampere art just gets better and better with each subsequent issue. So again, huge fan of everything that's being done. And the misogyny, unfortunately, it's all too possible.
Yeah.
As far as the backup goes, written by Tom King, Belen Ortega is the artist. It's more of the next generation Trinity. It's more of John Kent, Damian Wayne, and Lizzie, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. Basically, John and Damian are once again supposed to be babysitting Lizzie, this time at their Fortress of Solitude. Um, Damian's training against some Kryptonian combat robots. And John's busy dealing with stuff at kind of the communication center. Hey, where's Lizzie? Oh no, she's Black Mercying, right? She's getting her heart's desire from the Black Mercy flower. We know that can only go badly. Uh, not unlike Star Trek holodecking. And sure enough, she's getting her heart's desire, which is her as Empress, and she's beating up on John and Damian, which is a heck of a lot of fun. They don't know how they're going to get it off her, and then John figures out, well, it feeds off your desire and your joy and whatever. There's like, we used to have these gloves that you could use to handle it, whatever. And then John realizes, wait, Damian, you don't have any joy or positivity in you at all. You're the gloves. Like, if that wasn't like one of my favorite lines of this week, because that is who Damian is. He doesn't have any joy or positivity. The guy's a downer, man. That's why so many people dislike him. Certainly why I dislike him. He's just so negative all the time. Definitely not glasses half empty, but glasses 99% empty. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I thought the Belen Ortega art was really fantastic as well. So what did you think of the backup?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's funny. The way Trinity is coming across here is what is the type of narcissism that and the healthy self-image that reminded me of my early impression of Damian Wayne when Damian Wayne first came on the scene, and written by in particular by Gleason and Tomasi. I really fell in love with Damian Wayne. Grant Morrison brought back Damian Wayne, but it was Tomasi and Gleason, their Batman and Robin run, that made me love Damian Wayne and his sort of childlike narcissism. And what I got to give full props here. Trinity, this young Trinity is really starting to grow on me, and I'm very glad to say that, because the first impression of Trinity was terrible. I thought her debut was just awful. She came across like a bitch. She was unlikable. I didn't like it at all. And it works better for a young Trinity. It's the first impression is still terrible. I still think she comes off as terrible. This is a young Trinity, and she, in many ways, she sounds just like she does when she was the older Trinity that we originally saw. That we should see some evidence of maturity, and I still say that that first impression of Trinity that we got in that first appearance was awful. In Wonder Woman 800, I think it was just terribly written. And she's an older Trinity is unlikable. It's pretty alarming that a younger Trinity is more likable than the older Trinity, because there's no evidence of actual maturity. Now, maybe I'm being harsh, but I'm going to stand by it until I see some evidence, because it's while her narcissism was intended probably by Tom King to come off as playful in Wonder Woman 800, it didn't come across that way to me. But I know some people disagree with me on that, and that's fine. And I hope the majority of people disagree with me, quite frankly, because I want Trinity to be liked. Trinity should be as liked and at least as likable, but more interesting than her mother. Please be more interesting than your mother. Diana is so freaking boring and so uninteresting. Make Trinity interesting. This is a good way to make Trinity interesting, because if she's influenced by John Kent and Damian Wayne's dysfunctional relationship, then Trinity is destined to be an interesting character. Thank God. So these are like the three muskets. I would love to see ongoing adventure between these three at some point. That would be quite the series to get. Call it the Young Trinity or whatever you would call it. But this is interesting. Just a reminder to people: this year of DC Comics, we've been introduced to a lot of very young DC heroes, a lot of the new legacy. That the future of the DC universe is bright. If you start adding up all the lost children, all the sons and daughters of all the heroes that we've met just this past year, the dawn of DCU looks pretty bright.
Yeah, that debut of Trinity, you mentioned her being kind of narcissistic and what have you. Like, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you, unfortunately. It's almost like if she just would have cracked a smile here or there, so we knew she was joking. With the context of seeing the interactions between the younger heroes, and how she is. It does give context to that and makes it feel
Yeah,
more playful.
that
But
is true.
you're also dead on in that. Yeah, but if that's when she's, let's say, 17, there is a problem. Let's say she's 5 or 6, 7 years old here, and now
Yeah.
she's 17 and she's still acting that way. Yeah, where's the growth? Where's the evolution of her character? Yeah, that could be a problem. So anyway, that does it for the books that we're going to talk about in detail. Well, actually, that's all the books this week. In terms of collections, it's a very small week. There's only one. The Invisibles Book 2, trade paperback. The Invisibles is the Grant Morrison Vertigo title. This collects issues 13 through 25. Got some Phil Jimenez art, some Steve Yoel art, some Jill Thompson art, some Mark Buckingham art, some Tommy Lee Edwards art. So a lot of people worked on those particular issues. So if you're a Grant Morrison fan, check that out. It's probably going to be a tough one. There's a few different books that are probably deserving, Rocky, but what are you going to give your nod to for Book of the Week?
I'm going to go with. Uh, I got to go with Batman Offworld. Batman Offworld #2 was my favorite. Uh, yeah, definitely Batman Offworld #2. There's some ones that were pretty close to it, but Jason Aaron just continues to make a refreshing take on Batman. And even though it's nothing really new, it's sort of Frank Miller Batman in space. But that's why I love it. It just the setting is different. It's amazing how just taking the same, even though it might be a little bit tropey for Batman, the grim gritty Batman that we've seen so many times before, but just I can't believe how just the change in setting with just not human beings he's up against, but aliens and I feel like I'm in a different environment. I'm in an alien environment. I don't know what to expect. Batman might hit an alien in the face, but maybe the face isn't where you're supposed to hit the alien and incapacitate. Like, aliens think differently than us. Jason Aaron appreciates the fact that a different setting, different alien species means a different set of preparation, a different set of plans that, you can't plan something if you're facing aliens the same way you would against humans. And that's the central conceit of Batman Offworld. And that's why Batman's having the adventures in space that he has. And it's a uniquely, oddly enough, it takes place in space. It's science fiction, and yet it is in fact a Batman's story, and that's why I love it. And I just, it's 2 issues in, and I'm still on board. What about yourself?
Yeah, it is a tough call. I'll give an honorable mention to Superman #9, which is probably just slightly below. But I think Wonder Woman is deserving. I think probably Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong is deserving. I think Green Lantern War Journal is deserving. But at
Yeah,
the end of the day, I gotta give it to Batman Offworld as well. Like it's firing on all cylinders. Um, I love the complexity and the character work that Jason Aaron did on Ione. The Doug Mahnke art is fantastic. The David Barron colors are fantastic. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, at the end of the day, it's out in space and it's a cosmic story and whatever, and it's still a Batman story. I mentioned it when I was talking about the issue, right? Like Jason Aaron coming over to DC, getting a chance to write these characters the first time. I'm gonna write a cosmic story. Any number of characters he could have chosen, and he chooses a character that doesn't even have superpowers and is telling an amazing cosmic story. That's saying something. That's doing it right. That's showing your chops as a writer. So kudos to Jason Aaron and the creative team for a fantastic second issue of Batman Offworld. We'll see if he can continue and continue to raise the bar. Continue the high level of storytelling that they've been doing. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Hope you all are joining us for 12 days of the Comic Source Presents Bad Idea. We've had 5 episodes out so far. The 5th or 6th one came out today. I think the 6th one comes out today, same Tuesday, same day as this. And we'll be continuing on right up through Christmas, getting a chance to talk about these Bad Idea titles that not everybody has read. Rocky's getting a chance to read a lot of them the first time as well. So those are a lot of fun. They're a lot shorter than this because we're only talking about one series or one book most of the time. So we hope you're all joining us for that. Don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure you're subscribed to Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom ! If you're looking for it. Ring the notification bell, engage with us in the comments. We love to talk about the books and hear what you guys think about them as well. If you want to, be sure to check out the 12 Days of the Comic Source on YouTube. Just search for the Comic Source podcast. all those videos are on that channel. And then if you want to engage with us in our audio only podcast, just do a search for the Comic Source wherever you get your podcast. You'll find us and subscribe, and you won't miss out on any of the content. So again, happy holidays. We hope you're all enjoying the Christmas season, whatever it is you celebrate. Hope it's a really good time with family and friends. Thank you for joining us as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yes, and a quick reminder: go see Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom. We gotta show the DC universe some love. So Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom does come out this month. So embrace it. Go support DC.
100%.
All right, bye bye.